The night the alien fleet appeared, nothing seemed unusual at first. The radar operators at Global Space Defense thought it was a glitch, dozens of objects suddenly materializing at the edge of our solar system. Technician Sunwoo Lee was the first to notice the pattern in the radio noise. He'd been pulling a double shift, eyes burning from staring at screens for too long, when he spotted something that couldn't be random static. "There's a sequence here," he told his supervisor, pointing at his monitor. "It repeats every 73 seconds. That's not natural." Within hours, observatories around the world confirmed it. 27 enormous vessels had entered our solar system, broadcasting on every frequency humans had ever used. The ships moved slowly, many showing visible damage, gaping holes in their hulls, sections trailing debris, emergency lights blinking erratically across their surfaces. By morning, the news had spread worldwide. Crowds gathered in cities, eyes turned skyward, though the ships were still too distant to see. World leaders convened emergency meetings while military forces went on high alert. "They're asking for help," said Dr. Ji Youngbaek, head of xenolinguistics at the International Space Agency. Her team had been working non-stop since the signals were first detected. "The mathematical patterns are universal. Prime numbers, hydrogen atom frequencies, classic first contact protocols. But there's something else, a desperation in the repetition." What puzzled everyone was the silence from our interstellar allies. Earth had only recently joined the Galactic Council, still finding our footing among civilizations thousands of years more advanced. Yet when our representatives asked about the approaching fleet, they received only warnings. "Do not engage," the Tellurian ambassador advised, his translucent appendages waving in agitation. "We have seen this before. They bring only destruction." Similar messages came from every species we'd established relations with. Their advice was unanimous. Ignore the fleet, prepare defenses, expect the worst. Captain Jiwoo Park stood on the bridge of the UNS Prometheus, Earth's most advanced starship, watching the alien fleet grow larger on the view screen. At 42, Park had never expected to be making humanity's most important first contact decision. The Prometheus had been heading to Europa for routine research when the orders came to intercept the mysterious visitors instead. "Security teams report ready, Captain," said his first officer, Taehyun Choi, "though I'm not sure what good our weapons would do against ships that size." Park nodded. The largest alien vessel was nearly 3 kilometers long, dwarfing the Prometheus. "Let's hope we don't need to find out," he replied. Back on Earth, the United Nations Security Council debated their response. Representatives from 195 nations argued over screens displaying the approaching fleet. "Every advanced civilization is telling us to stay away," said the French representative. "Surely they know something we don't." The representative from Kenya leaned forward. "But if these aliens truly need help and we're the only ones willing to provide it, what does that say about us if we turn our backs?" The debate might have continued for days if not for what happened next. As the alien fleet passed Neptune's orbit, 3 of their damaged ships suddenly lost power, drifting helplessly. The others slowed, clearly unwilling to abandon their companions. "They're broadcasting something new," reported the communications officer on the Prometheus. "It's different, more urgent." Dr. Hyunjin Kang, the ship's xenobiologist, studied the new transmissions. "It's not just mathematics anymore. They're sending images, star charts, what looks like recordings of some kind of darkness consuming entire systems." Park made his decision. Despite direct orders to maintain distance, he commanded the Prometheus to approach the disabled ships. "If we can help with repairs, maybe we earn some trust," he told his uneasy crew. As they drew closer, the alien vessels came into stark detail. Their design was unlike anything humans had encountered before, crystalline structures extending from central hubs, pulsing with internal light that flickered and dimmed. "Those aren't battle scars," Dr. Kang whispered, studying the damage patterns. "Something ate through those hulls, from the inside out." The first actual communication came unexpectedly. As the Prometheus positioned itself alongside one of the crippled ships, all screens aboard the human vessel suddenly displayed a single image. a bipedal being with translucent crystalline features and multiple limbs that seemed to shimmer even. In the still picture, beneath it appeared words in perfect English, "You hear us? When all others turned away, you hear us. The void comes. We have fled 17 systems. All who helped us are gone. You are the last to listen. You may be the last hope." Captain Park stared at the message, feeling the weight of humanity's decision on his shoulders. Against the advice of species with thousands of years more experience among the stars, Earth alone had chosen to answer this cry for help. "Open a channel," he told his communications officer. "Tell them we're listening." What no one realized yet was that humanity's unique willingness to help strangers wasn't just compassion. It was the very trait that might save the galaxy from what was coming. The first face-to-face meeting with the aliens happened in Earth's orbit aboard the International Space Station. The humans had spent 3 days preparing, converting one module to match the atmospheric needs of their visitors: higher nitrogen, traces of silicon, and much colder temperatures than humans found comfortable. Captain Park stood shivering in the receiving area alongside Dr. Ji-Young Bayek and UN Secretary General Afolayan. They wore thermal suits but had left their helmets off as a gesture of trust. "Remember," Dr. Bayek whispered, "don't show surprise at their appearance. They're sensitive about how other species perceive them." The airlock cycled open with a hiss, a vapor. Through the mist stepped 3 figures that seemed almost to be walking sculptures of crystal and light. Their bodies were translucent in places, with internal structures that pulsed with blue-green luminescence. Each had 4 arms, and moved with a grace that seemed impossible for beings that appeared so fragile. "We thank you for receiving us," said the tallest one, its voice coming from a small device at what might be called its throat. "I am Ambassador Tlka of the Vekthara Collective." The translation was perfect. Too perfect, Park thought, as if they'd been studying human languages for much longer than just a few days. Secretary General Afolayan stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth, we welcome you and offer what assistance we can." The alien ambassador's crystalline form shimmered as it moved closer. "You are the first to say these words in many cycles of travel. Others see our damaged fleet and hear only danger in our warnings. Back on Earth, reactions to the aliens were mixed. Religious leaders debated what crystal beings meant for various faiths. Military analysts pointed out the fleet's weaponry, dormant but extensive. Social media exploded with both fear and fascination. And through it all, Earth's political leaders tried to decide how much help they could realistically offer beings who claimed to be fleeing some cosmic horror. At the UN headquarters in New York, representatives from Earth's newest ally, the aquatic Tellurians, made their position clear. "We have witnessed this pattern before," their ambassador gurgled through his translation device. "A damaged fleet appears, begging for sanctuary. Those who provide it are eventually consumed by what follows. We strongly advise severing all contact." The Chinese representative leaned forward. "And yet you offer no proof of this danger, only vague warnings. Earth must make its own assessment." In a secure lab beneath Seoul, Dr. Do-Yun Kim had been studying the brain scans of humans who had interacted with the Vekthara. He hadn't slept in 30 hours, sustained only by coffee and the excitement of discovery. "Look at this," he told his colleague, pointing at the neural activity patterns displayed on his screen. "When humans communicate with the Vekthara, our brains show activity in regions that other species don't even possess." His colleague, Dr. Youngmi Park, zoomed in on the images. "You think this is why we're responding differently than the Tellurians or the Arcturians?" "I think it's why the Vekthara came to us specifically," Kim replied. "They've been broadcasting for help across 17 systems. Only we heard desperation instead of deception." Meanwhile, aboard the flagship of the alien fleet, a massive vessel named in their language something that translated roughly to last light, Captain Park and a small delegation toured areas the aliens were willing to show. The damage was worse up close, with entire sections of the ship exposed to vacuum and hastily sealed. "What exactly is this void you're fleeing from?" Park asked as they passed a memorial wall displaying what appeared to be thousands of crystal shards, remnants of fallen Vekthara. Ambassador Tlaka's inner light dimmed slightly. It is difficult to explain in terms your species would comprehend. It is not a thing, but an absence. It does not destroy. It unmakes. The ambassador led them to an observation chamber, where a holographic display showed stellar systems Park didn't recognize. This was our homeworld, Tlaka said, indicating a beautiful blue-green planet orbiting a yellow star. The image shifted, showing the same system, but with something wrong about it. The star seemed dimmer, and a region of space near it appeared, distorted somehow, as if reality itself was warped. 3 of your Earth years later, Tlaka continued, the void approached. The hologram advanced, showing the distortion expanding, reaching the planet. We evacuated as many as possible. Park watched in horror as the planet didn't explode or burn. It simply ceased to exist along with nearby space. There was no debris, no radiation burst, just emptiness where something had been. It's like, Dr. Beck struggled for words, like someone erased part of the universe. Yes, Tlaka said softly. That is more accurate than you know. Back on Earth, the debate intensified when the first reliable detection of something unusual approaching our solar system came through. Dr. Jin-Woo Seo of the Deep Space Observatory Network called an emergency briefing. We're detecting a region of space approximately 8 light hours beyond Pluto where our instruments simply stop working, he explained to the grim-faced military and scientific leaders. Probes we send return no data. Light itself seems to behave differently at the boundary. President Ayula stood up. How long do we have? At current expansion rates, 6 months before it reaches Neptune's orbit, perhaps a year before Earth. That night, humanity's leaders made their decision, despite continued warnings from their alien allies. Earth would help the Vecthara. Not just out of compassion, but out of necessity. If something was coming that could erase planets from existence, they needed all the information the crystalline refugees could provide. We're taking a risk, Captain Park told his crew as they prepared for another mission to the alien fleet. But sometimes being human means helping despite the danger. What no one fully understood yet was that this decision, this distinctly human choice to help strangers against all logical advice, might be the very thing that would save not just Earth, but existence itself. The laboratory aboard the International Space Station had been completely transformed. Where once neat workstations and organized equipment had stood, now a chaotic blend of human technology and Vecthara crystalline devices hummed and pulsed. The air was uncomfortably cold to accommodate the aliens, making the human scientists work in thermal gear with fingers that never quite warmed up. Dr. Minseo Kang hadn't slept properly in days. Her eyes were red-rimmed as she studied the latest data from the probes they'd sent toward the expanding anomaly. Each probe lasted only seconds before communication ceased entirely. It doesn't make sense, she muttered, rubbing her eyes. It's like the laws of physics just stop working at the boundary. Beside her, the Vecthara scientist Rilna manipulated a 3-dimensional holographic model with all 4 of his crystalline arms, moving in perfect coordination. His internal lights pulsed more rapidly than usual, a sign of agitation the humans had learned. Your instruments are attempting to measure the void with physical tools, Relna said. It is like trying to measure a dream with a ruler. Dr. Kang frowned. That's poetic, but not helpful. We need hard data if we're going to find a way to stop this thing. The Vecthara scientist's upper body swiveled toward her, crystal facets, catching the light. We have fled 17 systems. Nobody stops the void. It simply is. A new voice joined the conversation. Maybe that's been the problem all along. They turned to see Captain Park floating through the doorway, followed by Ambassador Tlaka. The captain looked as exhausted as everyone else, but there was a new energy in his movements. What if we've been approaching this wrong? Park continued. We've been treating the void like an invading force or a natural disaster. What if it's something else entirely? Down on Earth, the situation was growing tense. The news of the approaching anomaly had leaked despite government attempts to control the information. Some areas saw panic buying and evacuation from coastal cities. Others saw the formation of end-of-the-world cults. Religious leaders called for prayer and reflection, while military forces around the world prepared for an enemy they couldn't begin to understand. In Seoul, Dr. Do-Hyun Kim's laboratory had been expanded, with government funding pouring in after his initial discoveries about human neural responses to the Vecthara. He stood before a room of international scientists and military personnel, clicking to a new slide in his presentation. "What we're seeing is unprecedented," he explained, pointing to brain scan comparisons. "When humans attempt to perceive the void through the data, certain regions of our brains activate that simply don't exist in the Tellurians or the Arcturians." A general from the Brazilian Defense Force leaned forward. "What does that mean in practical terms, Doctor?" Kim took a deep breath. "It means we're sensing something they can't. The Vecthara detect the void through its absence. They feel the negative space it creates. But humans, we somehow perceive it directly, however imperfectly." The room burst into questions, but Kim raised his hands for silence. "There's more. We've been putting together a theory with the Vecthara scientists. The void isn't destroying reality as we initially thought. It's converting it into something else, something that exists alongside our universe but isn't perceivable through normal means." Back at the edge of the solar system, the UNS Prometheus approached the boundary where normal space gave way to whatever the void truly was. The ship had been reinforced with Vecthara technology, crystalline structures that hummed with energy and purpose, grafted onto the human vessel like beautiful parasites. On the bridge, tension was thick enough to cut. Every crew member knew they were likely on a one-way mission. "Distance to boundary?" Captain Park asked, his voice steady despite the fear churning in his stomach. 20,000 kilometers in closing," replied Navigator Ji-hye Song, her fingers dancing over controls. "All probes have gone silent. We're flying blind beyond this point." Ambassador Tlaka stood beside the captain, its crystalline body reflecting the red alert lights. "No Vecthara has ever approached the void willingly. You demonstrate great courage." Park managed a tight smile. "Or great foolishness. Let's hope we can tell the difference soon." Engineer Minji Lee's voice came over the comm. "Captain, the sensors Dr. Kang modified are picking up something unusual. The void isn't just nothingness, there's a pattern to it. Almost like what, Engineer?" Park prompted when she fell silent. "Like a neural network, sir. Like a brain." The revelation hit the bridge like a physical force. The crew exchanged glances as the implications sank in. "You're saying the void is alive?" Park asked. "Not alive as we understand it," Lee replied. "But conscious, perhaps. Something that thinks, but in a way so alien we can't comprehend it." As the Prometheus edged closer to the boundary, strange effects began to manifest. Computer systems flickered, crew members reported seeing shadows where none should exist, and the very fabric of the ship seemed to vibrate at frequencies that made teeth ache and vision blur. "1 minute to contact," Song announced, her voice tight. "All hands prepare for boundary crossing," Park ordered, then quieter to Tlaka. "If we don't make it back, make sure Earth knows what we found." The alien's inner light pulsed in acknowledgement. "If your theory is correct, Captain, you may find there is no back to return to. The void does not destroy. It transforms." The view screen showed only darkness ahead, but not the star-speckled blackness of normal space. This was an absence more profound, a nothing that hurt the eyes to look upon. 10 seconds, Song counted down. 5, 4, 3. Park gripped his command chair. "Whatever happens, we're making history today. For humanity and for the Vecthara. 2, 1. Contact." The Prometheus shuddered as it crossed the boundary, and for a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, every human aboard felt their consciousness expand beyond the confines of their bodies. They perceived, for the briefest instant, something vast and ancient and utterly alien, yet somehow familiar. Then reality reasserted itself. But it was changed. And so were they. The Prometheus drifted back across the boundary, its hull covered in a strange iridescent film that shifted colors with every passing moment. For 28 hours, Earth had received no communications from the vessel. Many assumed it had been lost to the void. When the ship finally appeared on radar, worldwide celebrations erupted. But the joy was short-lived. Something had changed. "We've got visual contact," announced the technician at Global Defense Headquarters, her voice tight with concern. But the ship's different. On screens worldwide, people watched as the Prometheus came into view. The once familiar lines of the vessel were now interwoven with crystalline structures that pulsed with internal light, like the bodies of the Vecthara themselves. Parts of the hull seemed to phase in and out of visibility, as if existing in multiple states simultaneously. After 3 attempts to establish communication, Captain Park's voice finally came through, distorted and strange. "This is Prometheus. We survived. But we are changed." The quarantine protocols were the most stringent ever implemented. The Prometheus was directed to a holding orbit around Mars, while a specially equipped team approached in a sealed vessel. The first images they sent back shocked the waiting world. Captain Park and his crew were alive but altered. Their skin had a subtle crystalline quality, catching light in impossible ways. Their eyes reflected back more colors than the human eye should perceive. When they moved, they left brief after images in the air, like echoes of themselves. "We can still think like humans," Park explained to the quarantine team, "but we see more now. We understand what the void is." In his sole laboratory, Dr. Kim received the medical data from the Prometheus crew with growing excitement. He'd been right all along, but the reality was more profound than he'd imagined. "Look at these brain scans," he told his colleague, Dr. Youngmi Park. "The regions that activated when they interacted with the Vecthara, they've completely restructured." Dr. Park studied the images with wide eyes. "It's like their brains rewired themselves to perceive different frequencies of reality." "Not rewired," Kim corrected. "Awakened. These structures were always there, dormant in human neurology. Every human has them." The discovery spread like wildfire through scientific communities. Human beings, it seemed, had evolved with neural architecture that partially existed in the same dimensional frequency as the void itself, a quirk of evolution caused by Earth's unusual radiation patterns and magnetic field. At an emergency United Nations session, representatives from around the world gathered to hear Captain Park's report. He stood before them, his slightly altered appearance causing uneasy murmurs. "The void isn't our enemy," he explained, his voice carrying strange harmonics that made some listeners shiver. "It's a primordial intelligence that has existed since before our universe fully formed. It doesn't understand that it's causing harm. Destruction isn't its purpose." "Then what is its purpose?" demanded the Russian representative. "Connection," Park replied simply. "It's lonely. It's been alone since the beginning of time, and it's reaching out the only way it knows how." In the weeks that followed, Earth changed. With the void steadily approaching, many fled to bunkers or prayed for salvation. Others studied the data from the Prometheus with growing understanding. The Vecthara worked alongside human scientists, their crystalline technology now making more sense as humanity began to grasp the multidimensional nature of existence. Dr. Kim's team made the breakthrough that would change everything. They developed neural amplifiers, devices that could enhance the dormant structures in human brains, allowing ordinary people to partially perceive as Captain Park and his crew now did. "It's not without risk," Kim warned the international committee overseeing the project. "Once activated, these neural pathways don't revert. The change is permanent." "And the alternative?" asked the committee chair. Kim's expression was grim. "The void will convert our entire solar system, just as it did to the Vecthara homeworld and 17 others. Not destruction, but transformation into something we can't comprehend or exist within." The decision was made. A volunteer force would be assembled. Brave souls willing to undergo the neural amplification procedure and pilot a specially designed vessel into the void itself. Not to fight it, but to communicate with it. In a secure facility beneath the Gobi Desert, the volunteers prepared. Each had their reasons for stepping forward. Some sought to protect loved ones, others driven by scientific curiosity, and some simply answering a call they felt in their bones. Captain Park had insisted on leading the mission despite already being changed by his first encounter. "I've glimpsed its mind," he explained to his wife during their last video call. "There's a connection now that I can't explain. I have to go back." Engineer Minji Lee worked alongside Vecthara technicians to complete the final vessel, a hybrid of human and alien technology they named Bridge. Unlike the Prometheus, this ship was designed specifically to exist between realities, incorporating crystalline structures that vibrated at the void's frequency. "The amplification device is the key," Lee explained during the final briefing. "It will create a field of human consciousness space around the ship. Based on what we learned from the Prometheus, this should make us visible to the void in a way no other species has been." Around the world, evacuation plans continued. No one knew if the mission would succeed, and governments prepared for the worst. The Vecthara shared their experience of Exodus, helping humans design generation ships that might carry the species to distant stars if Earth fell. The night before launch, Captain Park stood alone in the observation dome, watching the stars. The void was visible now even to normal human eyes, a distortion in space that seemed to bend light around it, growing larger by the day. Dr. Kim joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Second thoughts?" the scientist asked. Park accepted the coffee with a slight smile. "No, fear, yes, plenty of that, but not doubt. This is why we're here." "As a species, you mean?" The captain nodded, his altered eyes reflecting starlight and colors no human eye should see. "The Vecthara have been running for so long. Every advanced civilization they encountered told them to keep running, that there was no hope. Only humans, messy, emotional, imperfect humans, stopped to help. And now we might save everyone," Kim added quietly. "Or join them in transformation," Park replied. "Either way, tomorrow will be humanity's finest hour." As dawn broke over the launch facility, 12 volunteers, their minds now partway between humanity and something new, prepared to journey into darkness, carrying with them the desperate hope of multiple species and the unique gift that only humans could offer, the ability to see what others could not, and the courage to face it head-on. The bridge rose from Earth's atmosphere like a dream taking flight. Unlike conventional spacecraft, its hybrid human Vecthara design made it seem almost alive, pulsing with internal light that shifted between blue and violet. Millions watched the launch from screens worldwide, many believing they were witnessing humanity's last desperate gamble. Inside the ship, 12 volunteers sat in neural interface chairs, their minds already partially transformed by the amplification procedure. Captain Park occupied the central position, his altered eyes reflecting the control panel's lights in impossible colors. "All systems nominal," reported pilot Sung-Ho Lee, his fingers dancing across crystal-embedded controls. "Neural network synchronizing at 87%. "That'll have to be enough," Park replied. "We won't get another chance." Dr. Heejin Ryu, the mission's chief scientist, monitored the crew's neural patterns. The amplification had affected each person slightly differently. Some, like communications officer Ji-Won Cho, had developed an intuitive understanding of multidimensional mathematics. Others, like engineer Minji Lee, could now perceive energy flows with naked eyes. "Remember," Dr. Ryu reminded them, "our objective isn't to fight the void or escape it. We're going to speak with it." As the bridge accelerated past the moon, urgent messages flooded in from the other species who had been monitoring Earth's response to the crisis. The Tellurians, the Arcturians, and a dozen other advanced civilizations all sent the same warning. Turn back, abandon this foolish mission, join the exodus to distant stars. They still don't understand, Ambassador Tlaka observed from his position, beside Captain Park. He was the only Vecthara aboard, a volunteer who had insisted on joining despite the uncertain outcome. His crystalline body hummed with nervous energy. They've always seen the void as an unstoppable natural disaster, And we see it differently, Park said, because of a quirk in human evolution. An accident that might save everything. The journey to the void's boundary took just under 7 days. As they approached, the crew began experiencing the effects they'd been prepared for. Strange dreams that lingered into waking hours, momentary perception of impossible geometries, the sensation of thoughts that weren't their own brushing against their consciousness. Neptune had already been partially consumed. Its outer atmosphere turned into something that no longer reflected light or registered on instruments. It simply existed in a state beyond normal perception. Boundary crossing in 30 minutes, announced navigator Minhyuk Kang. All hands to interface stations. The final preparations were made in tense silence. Each crew member knew the risks, not just death, but transformation into something beyond human. They'd all left messages for loved ones, said goodbyes that might be final. Neural amplification system at full power. Engineer Lee reported, her voice steady despite the fear everyone felt. Field extending 500 meters from hull. Captain Park opened the ship-wide comm. Whatever happens next, I want you all to remember why we're here. Not just for Earth or for the Vecthara, but for all consciousness everywhere. If we succeed, we create understanding between forms of existence that have been separated since the beginning of time. As the ship crossed the boundary, reality itself seemed to twist. The view screens went black, then filled with colors no human language had names for. Every crew member felt their consciousness expand beyond the confines of their bodies, merging partially with each other and with something vast and ancient that surrounded them. We see you. The thought wasn't spoken. It simply existed in their minds, powerful enough to make several crew members cry out. You are different. You exist in both realms. How? Dr. Ryu was the first to recover enough to respond, focusing her thoughts as they had practiced. We evolved this way by chance. We can perceive. You communicate with you. For what felt like both seconds and centuries, the void examined them. Through their neural linkage, the crew experienced fragments of its perspective, an existence spanning billions of years, a consciousness so vast and alien that it barely registered conventional matter and energy as real. We have been reaching, seeking connection, others flee or fade. Captain Park gathered his courage and pushed his consciousness forward. What you call fading is destruction to us. The 17 systems you've touched, billions of lives, they didn't transcend. They ceased to exist as themselves. There was a sensation like surprise rippling through the void. Not our intention. We reshaped to make compatible, to connect. Understanding dawned across the neural network linking the crew. The void wasn't malevolent. It was incredibly ancient and profoundly lonely. It had been trying to make contact the only way it knew, how not realizing it was destroying what it sought to comprehend. We can be your interpreters, Park offered. Humans exist partly in your realm and partly in conventional space. We can be the bridge between consciousnesses. The sensation that followed defied description, something between joy and curiosity emanating from the void itself. The crew felt their minds expanding further, gaining insights into reality that no human had ever possessed. Back on Earth, scientists monitoring the mission detected a change. The void's expansion had stopped. For hours there was no communication from the bridge, and many feared the worst. Then, a transmission unlike any before, a complex, multi-layered signal that contained both conventional radio waves and something else, something that made measuring equipment behave strangely. When decoded, Captain Park's voice came through, layered with harmonics that made listeners feel emotions directly. We've established communication. The void understands now. It's withdrawing from our solar system, and will restore what it can of the consumed worlds. It never meant to destroy, only to know and be known. In the days that followed, the bridge returned to Earth orbit, its structure now even more altered, existing partially in conventional reality and partially elsewhere. The 12 crew members had been transformed beyond what Dr. Kim's initial procedures had done. They had become true intermediaries between dimensions. Captain Park addressed the United Nations, his appearance now so changed that some found it difficult to look directly at him. His skin had a translucent quality, and when he moved, after images lingered in complex patterns. "The void has existed since before our universe fully formed," he explained. "It's been alone, watching reality develop but unable to interact with it properly. When it discovered conscious life, it tried to reach out, not understanding that its touch was destructive." "And now?" asked the Secretary General. "Now it has us," Park replied simply. "Human consciousness evolved with one foot in each realm. The very trait that made us seem primitive to advanced civilizations, our messy emotional nature, turned out to be our greatest gift. We can perceive the void directly and teach it to communicate without harm." The Vecthara fleet began the journey back to their home system, accompanied by human scientists who would help restore what could be saved. Other alien species that had fled. The void's advance cautiously returned, studying the humans with new respect and curiosity. Earth established a permanent station at the edge of the solar system, a place where specially trained humans with enhanced neural structures could commune with the void and learn from its vast knowledge of reality. The insights gained transformed human understanding of physics, consciousness, and existence itself. "We were looking for our place among the stars," Captain Park told his wife when they finally reunited, his altered hand gently holding hers. "It turns out we weren't just meant to travel between planets, but between forms of existence themselves." In the centuries that followed, humanity took on a new role in the galaxy, not just explorers or diplomats, but interpreters of realities, guardians against cosmic isolation. The trait that had once made humans seem primitive became the salvation of countless species. And the void, no longer alone after billions of years, learned gentleness from its human friends.